weekend. It's Jolanda and it's early and I don't have much time, but I definitely wanted to touch bases with you guys and talk about the season finale of This Is Us. This is going to be my regular recap chit chat. What did you guys think? What did you think of the show? What did you think of the finale? As you can see by this big smile on my face, I'm so excited about it. I had one of my subscribers who he and I comment down in the comment section. You know, we're just like geeking out, nerding out over the show. He sent me a message on Instagram wanting to know how I felt about the episode, and he was saying, you know, he had checked to see if my video was up yet, or he said he hadn't checked, and so it's up. If you're watching this, it's finally up. And I didn't want to know what he felt about it. And he didn't really, it didn't sound like he really wanted to know what I felt about it yet. And I just said, look, just, you know, wait for the video to come out. So you guys, I'm just going to go through, like I usually do, my recap scene by scene. I don't have a lot of time, but you know, I'm not going to watch the clock. I'm just hoping that we can get fit everything in this morning before I have to go. And I'm sure we will. And it'll be fine. But you guys, this episode, okay, so I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to do flashbacks, which, you know, they're not in present time when we're talking about the adult Randall, Kate, and Kevin, and Rebecca and Beth. But when we do flashbacks, we're talking about when they were teenagers, or when Rebecca and Jack were first married, or when, you know, when they were early in their marriage and the kids were teenagers. Then there's the flash way back, which is what we're gonna have to do today, where we're looking at Rebecca and Jack before they even met each other. And so the episode starts and I'm like because I just watched it last night. I wasn't able to watch it on Wednesday morning. So I watched it last night, which was Wednesday night. So then this is Thursday morning. And I saw somebody post on Facebook yesterday, and I was so annoyed because I was like, oh my gosh. They said that they were perplexed about the season finale. And I was like, ooh, what does that mean? What does that mean if they were perplexed? But anyway, I don't know what they were talking about, but I wasn't perplexed. So I'll say that. That's a spoiler alert. I was not perplexed. That was not the emotion that I was feeling when I was watching this show. So flashback to Jack driving to the drinking a beer and driving. Now, was drinking and driving legal back then? Like what was he doing? Drinking a beer and driving. I suppose people still do that, but he's drinking his beer and he's driving to the theater. Jack is getting turned all the way up. He gets to the theater called the Biltmore, and I was assuming that was where Rebecca's concert was. From there, we get a flash way back, and Jack is under that SS, that bad black SS that he ended up selling in an earlier episode to get money for the house that he built for Rebecca and the triplets. Well, he's under that car, and Mrs. Peabody's sweet old lady is chatting with him. It's a let me get it right. It's a 1967 Chevelle SS. My dad would have loved that car. Okay, he would have absolutely loved that car. Every time I watch this episode, I think about my dad, and y'all already know I get weepy. I start but I was just like, dang, Jack. I'm gonna talk more about how I feel about Jack, but that car, yes, my dad would have loved it. 1967 Chevelle SS. He's done some repairs on it. Apparently it was Miss Peabody's husband's car. She gives him $5. He just got back from the Vietnam War. My dad also served in the Vietnam War. I mean, it's just, there's so many parallels. I absolutely love this show. So how did she asked him, how did he come back from Vietnam so nice? And so that's how we get the background. He's from that he had just gotten back from Vietnam. Miss Peabody is telling him how nice he is, and she wants to hook him up with someone, and he's just like, no, Miss Peabody, I'm cool, whatever, you know, just it'll be okay. Then we have a flash way back of Rebecca. She's out with friends. Somebody's gotten engaged. They're talking about the wedding. They're talking about her bringing a date. She's telling them about her singing. They're like, when are you going to do something, you know, I can't remember exactly how to put it, like, when are you going to have a fallback plan or something like that? And Rebecca's like, hey, look, I'm still working on my singing. This is what I do. That's, what I've dedicated my life to. Then we have a flashback to when Jack's at the Biltmore, Rebecca's, where her concert venue, and he asked for a bourbon. Actually, he asked for a bud with a bourbon back. I'm like, dang, Jack. I've heard of like people drinking like a bourbon or a beer with a anyway, that's not even important. Let me keep going because this video is going to be way, way long. I'm not going to tell you everything I was thinking while I was watching the episode, just some of the stuff I was thinking. So Rebecca's backstage, and she's with what's his head is what I called him. I think later they said his name was Ben, but I'm so annoyed and irritated with him. I'm just going to call him what's his head. So she's back there with what's his head, the guy that she dated before, and she's got some stage fright. He comforts her. He's getting a little too close, and I was like, he's getting too close, Rebecca. Push him back. Get him off of you. He's getting in that intimate, bubble zone space that he doesn't have no business being in. But she's already, she's feeling vulnerable. Women, you've been there before. He's got this guy, so she's drawn to the comfort that he's providing. This dude, what's his head? He's going to try to kiss her. She pushes him back. And then she leaves. Well, Jack's still sitting at the bar. He's drinking his beer with the bourbon back. Jack is getting sloshed, and she has left what's his head in backstage, and she actually kind of walks right behind Jack and over to payphones, a bank of payphones. You guys remember payphones? She's over there with the payphones, and she's trying to call home. Jack doesn't realize he's walked behind her. He's still sitting there drinking. We get a flash way back, and Jack goes home to his mom and dad. His dad is apparently observably a jerk. Okay, so he's asking, and we know that from previous episodes as well. He asked Jack, has he found a job yet? Jack tells him kind of what his day was. He's like, no, a real job. He said, well, you know what? Really, you're my 28-year-old son. You're going to be employed and living in my attic forever, essentially. And Jack's like, anytime you drink, you start talking smack. Jack gives up the attack. He leaves the room. He's kind of like getting ready to get into it with his dad, and he's like, no, you know what, I'm a bigger person. He goes up to his attic room. He takes open some sort of a green, army green, like lockbox sort of thing, and if you know what that thing's called, let me know in the comment section below. But he puts the money that he's earned for the day in the little in his lockbox. Then we have a flashback. Rebecca's right behind Jack. I mean, like over in the corner. You can see how this would happen in real life. She's back there. She's working on, she's on the phone. She's calling home. She said, I miss you. I wish you were here, Jack. And he is. I'm like, he is. Rebecca, turn around. He's right behind you. Then we go to a flash way back, and Jack and his friend are standing in front of what looks like maybe it's a body shop of some sort, and they're saying, hey, Preston McGee Auto Body. So, Jack is sorry, not Preston McGee, Pearson McGee. Jack is the Pearson, and his friend is the McGee of this auto body shop. They're talking about the odd jobs that they've taken, and they're like, one day we're going to have enough. So basically they're projecting, dreaming forward about buying this building. Then we have a flashback. By this time, Jack, what do they call it? 2 sheets to the wind? Jack was like 6 sheets to the wind. He's walking around in the Biltmore, Rebecca! And you're like, oh my gosh, he's kind of turning into his dad, who's obviously an alcoholic as well. And that's kind of what that earlier banter between him and his dad was about. But we're kind of getting like, oh man, I mean, I know I was just kind of like, oh my goodness. So what does he do? Of course, who does he run into? What's his head? He runs into what's his head, and I don't know what What's His Head was thinking. I guess maybe he thought Rebecca and Jack had ran into each other, and so I don't know what he was thinking, but I think he just wanted to cause trouble because he's What's His Head, and he's, ugh. So he goes, don't punish her because I crossed the line. Really? Really, What's His Head? That was really what you felt like was an appropriate thing to say to a drunk man? So Jack punched him in the nose, and I was like, yep, I knew it was going to happen eventually. And basically commences to whipping his butt, basically. And then Rebecca walks in. She sees the commotion, and she says to Ben, it's over. It's over. So essentially, I get the impression that the concert done, we're not going on tour. It's over. It's over. Then we have a flash way back. Rebecca's in her apartment. She gets a letter from Elektra Records, and she opens it. She's reading it, and it basically says that they've passed on her demo. She gets on the phone and she says, "Hi, Janet. You know, you said you had that nice guy." And they go on to a conversation, and I'm thinking, okay, so Janet must be Miss Peabody. Miss Peabody's gonna hook her up with Jack, and they're gonna meet, and blah 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 blah. Meanwhile, Jack is grabbing all the cash. We're still in the flash way back. Jack is grabbing the cash out of his little lockbox, and including all of his earnings from Mrs. Peabody. And then, so then he grabs everything out of the lockbox and he's leaving, and then the phone rings, and it's Miss Peabody. And she says, "Hey, I set up this date with you, and here's the date, the time and the date for your date." And he writes it down, I guess, and sticks in his wallet, because he later pulls it out later. But I don't remember him writing it down, but I could have been making notes while he was writing it down. And so I'm assuming she's setting him up with Rebecca. She's taking all his notes, and then he leaves. And so Jack's with his friend. He's with, what did I say, McGee? Of Pearson and McGee. And they are at a poker game. And so this was a really, really good scene. And they're at this poker game, and Jack, puts most of his money in, and then they get to I don't know poker very well, you guys. They get to the point where they're looking at their hands, and they decide whether they want to go all in or not. And the other guy that he's playing poker with, he's like, "How much money do you have left?" Jack says, "I have $360. He says, "Well, why don't you put it all in?" So Jack puts it all in. And I'm like, oh no, we're all nervous. I was so nervous for Jack. I'm like, "No, don't lose all the money, Jack. This is all you got. This is all you got." So he pushes all of his money in. They turn over their cards. One guy has something, tens and fives, and Jack flips over his cards, and he's got a full house. Slide all the money over to Jack. So Jack is like, "Okay, well, it's been real. I'll see you later." And they're like, What? You leaving already? You only played one hand." And Jack's he says, "Well, he says, you haven't even finished your drink yet." And he had ordered, I believe, club soda. And he's like, and he's just like, "All right, deuces." And so they get outside, and Jack and McGee are just kind of like, "Whoa, yes. See, I told you, McGee." And Jack's telling him, nice guys don't always finish last. And they're congratulating each other. He's like, "You might have about $1,500. And he had this big old wad of cash, and he just folds it over and sticks it in his little pocket. And I could just feel something was getting ready to happen. I thought, oh my gosh, all that cash, they're going to be robbed. And it was somebody from inside I think there was somebody from inside Ray's bar. I believe the bar is called Ray's. Comes out, and they literally just stomp on Jack and grab his money, and they took it all. And basically said, "Don't ever come back here again." I was so mad, you guys. I was like, I cannot believe. I just was crushed. I was crushed. And then we have a flashback, and Rebecca and Jack are driving from the Biltmore, and Rebecca's just like, don't try to talk to me, not while you're drunk. Then we have a flash way back again, and it's Jack and McGee. They're talking, and he said, "I've watched my dad do wrong, have a choice to do between right and wrong, and he's chose wrong all the time. And me, I try to do right, and look where it's got me." And so he's basically at this place where he is just struggling. Like, okay, I try to do right, and wrong keeps happening. My dad, he just does wrong every time, and doesn't seem like there's any consequences there. He's like, "When will I get my break?" He said, "Okay, you know what? This is what we're going to do." And he comes up with this scheme. He says, "Next week, we're going to break. We're going to go back to that bar. I'm going to take the life that was going to come to me instead of waiting." Hasn't that gotten us all in a lot of trouble? I know it's gotten me in trouble in the past, wanting to take something instead of waiting for it. Girl, you guys, I could tell you some stories about when Jolanda has tried to take life in her own hands instead of relying on the Lord. It has not been pretty. So we have a flashback, and Jack and Rebecca are at the house, and she's like, I'll call you in the morning and apologize. I'll I'll go to some meetings. I'll get help. I've been drinking, for a few weeks, basically, is what he tells her. He's like, I'll call. Yeah, I'll call in the morning. I'll apologize to Ben, basically, what's his head. I'll go to some meetings. I'll get help. Thinking he's talking about AA meetings. And she's asking him how long he's been drinking. He says, he's been drinking for a few weeks. And she starts saying, you know what? I have no life. I'm a housewife to 3 teenagers. I'm home. I'm like, they don't even really need me anymore. I'm home. I feel like a ghost. You come home. Maybe, at the most, I might get you to talk to me about your day, but you literally pass out at 10 o'clock. She's like, what am I going to do? What about me? And then they're just yelling. You're just yelling. They're yelling back and forth. She's like, you know what? You hated that I was singing. You don't want me to have a life. She's going off, and then Jack is yelling back at her. He's saying he does it all. He supports the family financially, emotionally, and he's pleading his case, and they're screaming, and then one of them, I believe it was Jack, says, but we love each other. Yeah, it was Jack. He says, but we love each other. And Rebecca says, well, what do you love about me? I'll wait. And I was like, Jack, come up with something, say something. He couldn't give her anything. And you guys, this argument just reminded me so much of my parents who eventually divorced when I was young. That, that those arguments, those intense arguments, you can hear them. You don't really know exactly I know as a kid, I didn't know exactly what's being said, but I knew it was a huge disagreement. And I just felt so sad for Rebecca and Jack. And Rebecca finally says, you know what? I'm tired. I'm sad, and I want to go to bed. And, she's just like, next time, don't just tell me you love me out of habit, I believe is how she put it. So then we get a flash way back, and Rebecca's getting dressed for the first date. We get a flashback, and Rebecca goes down in the morning, we're assuming after, that argument, and she's talking with Jack, and Jack has slept on the sofa, apparently. Rebecca says, you know what, we meant what we said and we can't pull it back. You should go stay with Miguel for a while and let's just give ourselves some air. And Jack goes, okay. He doesn't argue with her. He just says, okay. Flash way back, Rebecca arrives at the restaurant and Jack isn't there because I'm totally like, where's Jack? So he hasn't made it there yet. But then, but then we see Jack is at Ray's. He's outside with McGee, and they're looking at, I love you guys, okay, let me just calm down. They're looking at Ray's, and they're plotting how they're going to rob Ray's. And Jack is saying, okay, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to have a drink. You're going to call them McGee. It's going to be about this time. You're going to call. You're going to keep him on the phone. And while you're keeping him on the phone, I know when he goes to answer the phone, he's going to leave that drawer open. I'm going to go, and I'm going to grab the money, and we're going to be outie. So flash over to Rebecca at the other restaurant. She's waiting on someone. And then, so we're thinking, oh my gosh, Jack's over at Ray's. Rebecca's at this restaurant, and he is missing his date with her. But then all of a sudden, some guy named Ethan shows up. And then we have a flashback where let's see. We have a flashback to when Jack and Rebecca are discussing how to tell the kids about their separation. So we know that eventually there's going to be some sort of separation. Then we come to present day, where Kate and Toby are somebody's apartment, maybe unpacking things, and Kate's looking through pictures and she sees a picture of her mom singing, and she says, you know what, Toby, I want to sing. And essentially when Rebecca and Jack are talking about their separation, Jack is saying the kids will be okay. They'll live through this. They'll remember this is a bump in the road. I don't have all the verbatim. You all remember. He's just basically saying the kids are going to be all right, even if we separate for a little while. They'll be okay. And so as he's saying that, we're seeing what's going on with the kids. And then we go to Kevin and Sophie. And Sophie tells Kevin, I want you to get that part. And he's like, okay. He's like, it's just a, meeting with the director. Don't worry about it, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I want you to get the part. And then he gets in the, Black Town car and he takes off up the street. So I'm assuming that he's headed to LA for the audition with Ron Howard. I'm scared, but I feel like their love, maybe their love now is strong enough to withstand the separation. And then we have Randall, our favorite family, and he's putting a picture of William in his album, and he's flipping through the pages, and he sees himself, and he sees the rest of the family. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm gonna start crying. I didn't cry last night. And he tells Beth, I want to adopt a baby. I was like, yes, yes. Then we get a flash way back. And Ethan is boring Rebecca to tears. And she says, you know what? He's talking about commodity trading. He almost reminded me of Randall. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to leave. He's the guy, have you ever been on a date and the guy, all he wants to do is talk about himself. He's not asking you nothing. He just blah, 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 blah. Like, okay, maybe you should I'll just, put your jacket over here and you can just talk to yourself because you're only interested in listening to yourself speak. So she's like, you know what? I'm going to go sing. And then next we go over to Jack and he's watching the clock to do this, this grab and dash plan that he's cooked up with McGee. And McGee looked like he was kind of nervous about the plan, but he's following Jack. And you know what? One of the things that I really liked getting this background information on Jack because I felt like he was kind of rough around the edges and totally is the kind of guy that I like. A guy who has is rough around the edges but's been redeemed, who's got a good, solid character about him and foundation and faith. Faith is important to me, but just the idea of someone who's seen stuff, who's had to make tough decisions, who's seen his life kind of turn from bad to worse to how providence of God's grace has brought him back in line and kept him and protected him. And I just absolutely loved the way the story arced and the way it just bent to the left. You guys, I just absolutely loved it. And like I said, I love a guy like Jack who knows something, who's got not only that character, but also a wisdom about what the world is like as well. What's really happening in the world and can relate on that level as well. It just makes my heart sing because I feel like that's me as well. I get it. I get the pressures of the world. I get, wanting to scheme and plot and do something, but I also understand that God can swoop in and he can save us and he can, okay, I'm not going to start preaching. All right, anyway, so back to it. So Rebecca is on stage singing. She's at Ray's, you guys. So she left Ethan. She ends up at Ray's. So as soon as the phone starts ringing, the little old bartender goes over to answer the phone and McGee's on the phone, right? And then Jack's sitting at the bar and he's like, okay, this is my chance. I'm getting ready to go roll over there. Sure enough, he left the cash register open. I'm getting ready to go grab that cash. We're going to be out of here. He goes to walk around the bar and who is on stage singing? Crooning her little heart out. It's Rebecca. She's zoody-doo, wah, 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 wah. And he looks, and she smiles, and he smiles. Girl, oh, y'all, it's over. It's over. That is love, okay? That is love. So he forgets all about the robbery, and he is in it. And so then we have a flashback, and he tells her why he loves her. He tells Rebecca why he loves her. He says, you're not just my great love story. You, Rebecca, you were my big break. And it's just getting started. He tells her all these things, like he lines it out. But he says, you know what? You're not just my great love story. You were my big break. And it's just getting started, baby. You better Mac, Jack. You better Mac her. And then it's over. And then it's over. You guys. You are not just my great love story. You are my big break, baby. I was like, yes. You better know your good thing. All right, you guys, let me know what you thought about it. Leave it in the comments section below. We gotta talk. This is a good finale, in my opinion. I was not perplexed. I was not unsure. I was not expecting something different. They did not disappoint me. How do you feel about it? leave it below. Talk to you guys later. Bye.